Today we're making this. Hello crafters, welcome to my channel. Thanks so much for returning, or if you're new, I'm so glad you found my videos for the first time. My name is Amanda and I post fun crafting DIY videos. And one of my favorite crafting techniques is crochet. So today I'm bringing you a crochet video, and this is going to be centered around a yarn that I bought like a year ago, and I finally did something with it. Because that's kind of the story of my life. I buy yarn and then it takes me forever before I actually make something out of it. Anyways, the yarn is Lion Brand's Landscapes yarn. They are super pretty, like, oh my goodness. They're gorgeous colors and the yarn is so soft and thick. It's just a very unique yarn. So when I saw it, I knew I had to get some. So I finally got some with the gift card, but then I was stumped for a while of what to make with this yarn. I finally settled on a hat, and I've got this super cute pattern that really brings out the beauty of this yarn. So here's a look at the hat. It's so pretty. And you get the striping of all the different colors in there. And then with this hat, you of course can wear it as like a slouchy beanie. You can pull it, you know, tight over your head. So you can kind of a slouchy beanie look. You can pull it, you know, further forward. You can roll the brim back. Lots of cute ways to wear it, and it looks super complicated just because the yarn changes colors, but it's really easy to crochet. So let's get out our materials and jump into this project. So here is another closer view of our hat. And it's so pretty in these colors. The hat pattern itself is actually really simple, but it's the beautiful colors of the yarn that really make this pop. And I love how this transitions so nicely from fall, you've got these like fall looking sections, into winter and more Christmassy. It's just a very festive looking hat, and it's so cozy and warm. Also, what's really cool is the top kind of looks like a star, and my color changes worked out perfectly for this. So your color may not line up exactly, but you will end up with a star shape, and if your colors fall right, it'll really pop like mine does here. So this hat I made using some Lion Brand Landscapes yarn. This particular color is Desert Spring. Here's a look from the end. It's super pretty. So that's the yarn I used to make this hat. However, this yarn is very difficult to frog. And when I say frog, I mean basically unravel it. And I actually had to, you know, I kind of tweaked around and played with how I wanted this hat to be. So I did do some with this hat, and I found that it very quickly makes the yarn super fuzzy, and I didn't want it to get super fuzzy. So since I already have a hat in this yarn, I'm going to use a different yarn for the sake of the tutorial, but the Landscapes yarn is really what this was designed for and looks so gorgeous in the landscapes. But since that's really hard to unravel and I don't want two identical hats, I'm going to make another hat like this style, but using homespun in the color Vineyard. So that's the yarn I'm using. As far as hook goes, I'm using a size K, which is, I think it's supposed to be a 10.5 milliliter. This is a Susan Bates, it's really old. As long as you're in the general range, you should be okay. I don't think it's gonna make a huge difference if you're, you know, as long as you're in the 10 to 11 millimeter range, you should be good. So the first step of making the hat is to make the band. We're gonna make the band and then we work the hat upwards from the band. But for the band, we just get a slip knot on my hook and we will zoom the camera in. We are essentially going to work rows of single crochet back and forth, but we're gonna work in just some of the loops so that we can create the ribbing. So to get started, chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after I chain 6, I'm going to turn my work, and I'm gonna skip that first chain. That's gonna be my turning chain. And then in my next 5 chain, I'm going to work a single crochet. So 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. And now I'm going to work 5 single crochet along this row, but I'm going to work in the back loops only. So this is my first stitch here. It's a little hard to see with this yarn. That's my first stitch there. I'm going to go underneath that right there and work a single crochet in just that back loop. And that'll leave this front loop exposed. Go to my next stitch, work in just the back loop only, and work another single crochet. In my third stitch, work in just the back loop, and work a single crochet stitch. In the back loop, work a single crochet stitch. And then my 5th spot, work a single crochet in just the back loop. And that 2nd row we did, I'm going to repeat that back and forth a whole bunch of times, and that's going to create that nice ribbed edge. So it's going to create that nice ridge that we have there. And you'll be able to see it more clearly if you're working in the landscape versus in the homespun. So you'll easily be able to tell where to go in if you're working with this yarn. I'm going to do a few more rows to show you how it turns out. So here's a look at how that ribbing will go. Looking from different angles, you can kind of see it's kind of got that bulge on either side. Again, this is what it will look like if you're working in the landscapes yarn. And this is really a great way to do a hat band for any number of hats if you're working from the bottom up. So basically each row I work 5 single crochet working in back loops only. In this hat I did 44 rows of 5 single crochet across each, working in back loops only. You can adjust that and play with it. And I'll measure this and pop up on screen right now, hopefully what the diameter is when I lay this flat folded in half. And it's got a good bit of stretch to it. It kind of stretched out more than I was thinking it would. So just keep that in mind when you're sizing it. Basically, either stick with my 44 rows or you can play around with how loose or tight you want the band to be, and I'll tell you how to adjust that. So I'm going to finish doing my rows to make my band, and then I'll come back and we will work on the pattern going up. Alright, so I've worked the 5 single crochet in the back loops for a total of 44 rows, and it might look a little small at first, but I promise it has a lot of stretch. So if you kind of give it a stretch and you think that once stretched out it's too big, you may want to do less rows. And I'm actually going to take a few off of mine, and I'm just going to do 40 rows. So I'm doing 40 because I want this one to be a little more snug. Once you have the band made, we're going to fold it in half. And I'm going to come to the side that doesn't have the yarn attached, so the very beginning, and I'm going to hook through the base of my first stitch from the beginning, hook through the top of my last stitch in the end here, and work a slip stitch to stitch it together. Come to the base of my next stitch, come to my next stitch on the opposite side, slip stitch them together, and I will keep slip stitching across. So now we have the band attached. So right now our seam with the slip stitches is on the outside. We're going to take this whole thing and push it down to the bottom and turn it so that way we are looking at the outside edge and we still have that loop of yarn on our hook. So whether you did 44 rows in the band like I did on the first one, or whether you just do 40, we want to work a total of 64 double crochet evenly along. So if you do 44 rows, that works out to be about 3 double crochet for every 2 rows in the band, and then you kind of have to make it up a little bit towards the end to just kind of space it evenly. Here's how we actually work that. We're going to start by chaining 3. And then I'm just going to work along the side here and just place double crochet evenly so that I end up with 64 all together. And really doesn't matter where in the side you go, just find a spot where you can find a spot where you can insert your hook and work your stitch there. So I'm going to keep working around, trying to fit all 64 evenly around here, and then I will come back and show you the next row. Alright, so I finished working the 64 double crochet evenly around, and the last thing I need to do is come to the top of my chain 3 space, and I'm going to join. So when I do the join, I'm not going to go like into the actual stitching. I'm going to go in the space between the chain and my first double crochet and slip stitch right there. And now it's time to start working the first row of our patterns, and they're actually really easy. It's just a V open stitch. So to get this row started, I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and in the same spot where I joined, I'm going to work a double crochet. So the chain's acting like one side of the V, and then we have like a chain in the middle, and then a double crochet in this for the other side. So now I'm going to do a repeating pattern all the way around. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches, so skip 1, skip 2, and in the 3rd stitch, I'm going to work a double crochet, then chain 1, and then a double crochet in that same spot. Repeat the process, skip 1, 2, in the 3rd one, work a double crochet, chain 1, work a double crochet. Skip the next 2 stitches, in the 3rd stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And I'm going to keep repeating this process all the way around, and when I get done with the row, I'm going to slip stitch into the center of this first V to join. So I finished going around with the second row here, which is the first row of this V stitch, and you will have 22 of these V's. So to finish the row off, I'm going to insert just through the big loop of the very first V stitch, yarn over and pull it through to work a slip stitch. The next 6 rows are worked exactly the same as this previous one, and when we're going to make sure that we work the V's into the opening of the previous V's. So to demonstrate, we will start by chaining 3, 2, 3, and then I'll work a double crochet into this opening here. And then I'm skipping 2 stitches, so that's basically the left side of this V stitch and the right side of this V stitch. And then this opening chain space of my next stitch, I am going to work a double crochet, chain, and then a double crochet into that spot. And I will do this all the way around, join the same way I did. So basically I will have 7 rows of this V stitch worked evenly. So I've got to do this row plus another 5 after it, and then we'll start the rows of decreasing. Alright, so here's what we've got so far. We have done 7 rows of that open V stitch, and we did that just working evenly, and now it's time to start decreasing. We have 5 rows of decreasing. So the way we do these decreases is we shift where we work. We're going to start by working the first 2 V patterns the same way we've been doing. So just working them evenly. So I'm going to start by chaining 3, and double crocheting into that first spot. And then this next V stitch here, I'm going to work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And then for the next 2 V stitches, instead of skipping this spot right here and working inside the next V stitch, I'm going to skip this spot, skip the V stitch, and I'm going to work between those 2 V stitches there. So basically the next 2 V stitches, I'm working right here between them, and I'm going to work a V stitch in there where I work a double crochet, a chain, and a double crochet. Skip the next V stitch right here, and in between those 2 V stitches, I'm going to work another V stitch, so double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. After doing those 2, we're going to skip the next V stitch, also skip the space between the next V stitches, and work a V stitch in the second V stitch. So work that double crochet, chain 1, double crochet there. And basically that's how the pattern's going to go. We're going to do 2 double crochet inside of V stitches, so working them evenly. and then we're going to skip the following V-stitch and work our next 2 V-stitches between V-stitches. That's the first one, and then work the next one in between the 2 following V-stitches. And then to go back to working 2 evenly within the V-stitches, we're going to skip this V-stitch entirely and work in the following V-stitch. So we'll just keep working this pattern around. When you get to the end, there will be an extra one, so just work inside of that V-stitch evenly. Okay, I said that wrong earlier. Actually, it works out so that you just keep going 2, 2 back and forth. There's not an extra one. But we will join by slip stitching in our first V-stitch from the round. We will repeat this process for the next row, and that is the row where we will have 1 extra. And so in that extra one at the very end, we will just work a V-stitch in it evenly. But work 2 evenly, then shift forward to working in the space between, and then shift forward to working evenly, and keep repeating that back and forth. And as we keep shifting forward, that's what's basically taking our decreases. So that's how we work the first 2 rows of decreasing. The next 3 rows of decreasing, which are our final 3 rows, are all worked the same way. We're going to start by chaining 3 and double crocheting in that first V-stitch. So we're working our first V-stitch evenly. Our next V-stitch, we're going to work between the following 2 V-stitches. So work that double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. The next stitch, the next time we do a V-stitch, we're going to skip the following V-stitch of the previous row and jump into work in that second one. So work a V-stitch in the second V-stitch from the previous row. Then jump to working between the next 2 V-stitches. And we're going to repeat this process all the way around. And we're going to do the same process for this row and the following 2. So when we do this kind of decrease the first time around, here's the very first V-stitch of the row. Here's the V-stitch from the previous row. And here I have worked between the 2 V-stitches. So the next thing I would do would be to work in the following V-stitch, except I don't have any more left to work in this row. So I'm going to, at this point, slip stitch by inserting my hook into the side of the V-stitch and working a slip stitch. I will do the same thing for the next 2 rows, and then our hat will be just about done. Alright, so I've done the first 4 rows of decreasing, and I misspoke. The 5th row is different than the other ones. So for the 5th row, what I am going to do is I'm going to chain 2 and then work a double crochet in this V-stitch. Then I'm going to find the next 2 V-stitches, and between them in that space, I'm going to work 2 double crochet. So 1 and 2. Then skip the next V-stitch, and in the following V-stitch work 2 double crochet. Then I'm going to find the next 2 V-stitches and work 2 double crochet in the space between them. And then we're going to do 2 more double crochet working between the last 2 V-stitches. So work 1 double crochet and a second double crochet. And then at this point, we are going to come to the beginning of our round, and in the top of that chain 2 we did, we are going to make a slip stitch. And then we're going to fasten off and leave a very long tail. So I'm going to cinch that up there, and we still have this opening. So basically what we're going to do to finish this off is we're going to take our tail and we're going to sew the opening closed. So to sew it closed, I'm going to do a whip stitch where you come from the top and come out the middle, go to the top of the next stitch, and I'm basically working from front to back. It's kind of like a big spiral. And each time I do a stitch, I'm going to really snug it up. Come from the front, go to the back of the top of the next stitch, cinch it up, and basically this is what's going to close off the top of this hat by doing this whip stitch really tightly. So basically keep whip stitching around until it's mostly closed off, as tight as you want it to be. Once you have it as tight as you want to be, I'm going to feed the thread through to the inside of my hat. And then on the inside here, I'm going to tie it off. So I'll run it under that spot right there. Run it through this to make a knot. Cinch that down. I'll probably do a second knot just to make sure it's really secure. Take my tail in, weave it in to hide it. Cut the excess, re-inside out it. And now our hat is done. And in the top there you can see the star shape that's formed right here. So there you have it. Now you can crochet this easy beanie. What I love about this is really thick yarn, whether you went with the homespun or you went with the landscapes. Personally, the landscapes is like amazing with this hat. But regardless of which one you went with, these are both pretty thick yarns. And sometimes when I wear hats, especially crocheted hats, they feel really like hot and heavy on my head. But this one, because it's kind of airy and light, it's the perfect balance of warmth and breathability. So it's super awesome in that aspect. Let me know down below if you want to see more projects with this, if you want to see more projects either that are hats or that are with this yarn, and I'll see what I can come up with. But don't forget before you leave to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up so we can all have a happy time crafting. Yeah, rock on!